All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, with yesterday's action in the books for this weekend in the world of college football, we are obviously one step closer to getting to the college football playoff, and the picture is really starting to become a little bit clearer, but there is still work ahead for these teams to get there. Now, what do we know? For me, Georgia is still the top ranked team in the country. They are going to be on cruise control until they get to the SEC championship game next month. For me, obviously, Ohio State is number two. The Buckeyes continue to roll, but they cannot look past Maryland this Saturday before they host Michigan in about 2 weeks. Number three for me is going to be Michigan. Harbaugh's Wolverines, and I'm talking about Jim Harbaugh, the head coach of Michigan. They look poised and pumped to make another run at getting to the college football playoff. For number four, it's TCU. And for the Horned Frogs, this team is for real. You can't underscore them going on the road to Austin last night and getting the win over a good Texas team. Texas is a little bit better than what their record is, and that's a good win for TCU. Number five, it's Tennessee. And for me, Tennessee right now is in a good spot because they have the one loss to Georgia, but they're just laying in the weeds, waiting for somebody in front of them to slip up, and then they can get one of those top four spots potentially. Number six, it's going to be LSU, but LSU controls their own destiny. They just clinched the SEC West yesterday. They're going to the SEC championship game to take on Georgia. And if LSU wins out, and they go to Atlanta and beat Georgia, there's no way that you keep them out of the college football playoff, even with the two losses. Number seven is Alabama. Alabama, it's a long shot for them, but they still have a shot to make the playoff just based off of where I think they should be ranked right now. For me at number eight, I'm going with USC. And right now, the men of Troy are carrying the Pac 12 banner after we saw both Oregon and UCLA lose at home yesterday. For number nine, it's going to be Clemson. And, Clemson was in one of those top four spots until they lost to Notre Dame last Saturday. But you just got to wonder if Clemson wins out and they win the ACC, they're going to play North Carolina in the ACC championship game. And Carolina will be a top 15 team, at least in the playoff ranking at that point. Is that going to be enough to catapult Clemson? We got to wait and see. For number 10, I'm going with Oregon. They're going to fall down some spots, but they lost to a good Washington team yesterday. That was not a fluke. And for me, Oregon, they're down, but they're not out. And this is a big game coming up this Saturday for Oregon. They got to travel to Salt Lake City to take on Utah, and then they're going to be home on Thanksgiving weekend to take on Oregon State in the Civil War and potentially getting to the Pac 12 championship game. So there's still an opportunity there for Oregon to make a play at the playoff. Right behind Oregon, I'm going with Utah at number 11. And just like it was for Oregon, Saturday's game for me for Utah is an elimination game for both sides. The winner hangs around not only in the Pac 12 championship race, but also the college football playoff race. Number 12 is Penn State. And I mean, Penn State's there, but to me, they're going to be the longest of the long shots. And the reason for that is Penn State had their opportunity against both Michigan and Ohio State, got blown out by Michigan, and then they kept it close with Ohio State to that last quarter when the Buckeyes just really turned it up to another gear. So for the Nittany Lions, their chances there, they'll probably finish in the top 10 of the rankings, but that will guarantee them a New Year's Six Bowl. And nonetheless, again, it was a tough weekend for the Pac 12. Oregon was rolling, and a lot of people felt like Oregon had a legit shot to get into one of those top four spots. They still have an opportunity, but it's not going to be the easiest of roads as it was before. And then, of course, UCLA losing at home to Arizona. I mean, the Bruins still have an opportunity to get to the Pac 12 championship game, but it's going to be tough. They got two conference losses under their belts. And, you still got to deal with the likes of Utah and Washington. and Oregon in the standings, as well as USC. So, we got to see what happens there for the Bruins. Now, one question: would the committee, the College Football Playoff Committee, take a one-loss Tennessee team over a one-loss Ohio State or Michigan team? That's going to be very interesting. I think it comes down to how close that the contest between the Buckeyes and Wolverines will be in 2 weeks. And obviously, the loser would then have to sit back, just like Tennessee, and watch their conference championship game to see what can happen and if they have an opportunity to move up. We got to wait and see. Plenty of teams that are on the outside looking in right now for the college football playoff. They're definitely hoping for TCU to lose, but Sonny Dykes and company continue to win. And you figure if TCU wins out and then they win the Big 12 championship game, you're not going to keep them out of the college football playoff. But I think right now TCU is in a situation where if they were to lose one of these last two games or the Big 12 championship game, I'm not sure if they're going to be able to hold on to one of those top four spots. There is a possibility that this college football playoff could be the exclusive ground of both the Big Ten and SEC, meaning it wouldn't surprise me to see two SEC teams get into the field of four, and it also would not surprise me to see two Big Ten teams get into the field of four as well. You think about what these two conferences have done in recent years to add teams and continue to add programs. Their television deals are a step above everybody else. And then you look at some of the marquee teams that represent their respective conferences, and then you think about on the field this year what Michigan and Ohio State are doing. And then you look at the SEC, you got LSU in the mix. Alabama still has a shot. Tennessee's right there. And then, of course, the defending national champions in Georgia. So, with that all said and done, it really wouldn't surprise me. It's not out of the realm of possibilities. And obviously, a lot of that is going to hinge on what TCU is able to do, but then also how that Michigan Ohio State plays out. And let's see what the SEC championship game comes down to as well between Georgia and LSU, because we all know that whoever gets to the Big Ten championship game, whether it's Michigan or Ohio State, more than likely they're going to have a field day with whoever they play from the West. That is going to be a given. There are some important games on the ledger for this upcoming Saturday. You got Illinois traveling to Michigan. The Illini have lost their last two, but the Wolverines cannot overlook them. TCU traveling to Baylor. It's going to be a tough game for TCU to try to go on the road once again to take on a very good Baylor team. Ohio State going to Maryland. I know Ohio State's going to be favored big in this game. Maryland just got blown out on the road by Penn State, and Maryland during the time in the Big Ten has been known to give Ohio State some fits. So let's see what happens there. Miami traveling to Clemson, and I know that Clemson is probably going to be favored big in this game, but honestly, it's one of those where, hey, it just smells of trap games. So we got to wait and see what happens there. USC going to the Rose Bowl to take on UCLA, and after UCLA came up short against Arizona this Saturday, would they like to spoil the college football playoff hopes of their crosstown rival? That's a big one right there. And then, of course, Utah and Oregon, like I talked about before. So these are some very important games. I'm going to continue to say it, and I'm going to continue to beat a dead horse. This is why you should just keep the playoff format to just four teams as opposed to expanding to 12, because you see the importance of all of these games coming down the stretch for all of these teams right here in November. And I think that adds to the excitement. And then, of course, it's going to be taken away because you're going to water down the playoff field by adding it. You got 12 games in the regular season to get it done. And for most of these teams, you have a conference championship game as well. That's more than enough time to figure out who's who and what's what. But with that all said and done, you know what? These final 2 weeks are going to be a race to the finish. It's going to be a battle because at the end of the day, conference games in November as a whole, whether you're on the road or at home, are always difficult to win. And we're finding that out. Some of these teams are finding that out the hard way. It's the nature of the beast, and let's see who's going to survive and get to the field of four for the playoff. So, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. You can check it out, drop a line, to be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So, once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I'm signing off, saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.